The stars looked the same as they always did. Cold, distant, silent. Captain Tae-sung stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the endless black through the main viewport. He had been doing this for 30 years now. 30 years of searching, 30 years of finding nothing but empty worlds and dead rocks. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Hee-jin said from her station. She was young, only 24, but she had the best ears on the ship. If there was a signal out there, she would find it. Tae-sung walked over to her console. "What kind of strange?" "It's not natural. I'm sure of that. But it's not ours either." Her fingers moved across the screen, pulling up wave patterns and frequency data. "It keeps repeating. Same pattern over and over." Dr. Jiwoo looked up from her research station. She was the ship's chief scientist, and she had spent the last 15 years studying the great silence of the galaxy. "Why were humans alone? Where was everyone else?" "Let me see that," she said, moving to stand beside Hee-jin. The two women studied the data together. Jiwoo's eyes went wide. "That's a mathematical sequence. Prime numbers. Someone is trying to communicate. Or warn us," Sung-ho added. He was the ship's chief engineer, a man who had seen enough broken equipment to know that not everything that worked was meant to help you. "Run a translation protocol." Hee-jin's fingers flew across her keyboard. The computer worked for several minutes, analyzing the pattern, comparing it to every known language database. Finally, words appeared on the screen. "Stay away." The bridge went quiet. Those two words repeated over and over, coming from somewhere deep in uncharted space. "Where is it coming from?" Tae-sung asked. Hee-jin pointed to her navigation display. "About 3 light years from here, deep void." "Nothing on any of our charts, and could be a trap," Sung-ho said. "Old defense system." "Automated warning, could be," Tae-sung agreed. But something in his gut told him this was different. This was what they had been searching for. "Change course." "Take us there." "Captain, the warning," Jiwoo started. "I know what it says, but we didn't come all the way out here to turn back at the first sign of something interesting." Tae-sung returned to his command chair. "We're going to investigate carefully." The journey took 18 hours at maximum fold speed. During that time, the crew prepared. Lieutenant Yun-seo readied her security team. Jae-won, the systems technician, gathered every scanning device they had. Everyone knew this could be the moment they had been waiting for. Or it could be nothing. Or it could be dangerous. When they dropped out of fold space, every person on the bridge stopped breathing. There, floating in the absolute darkness of deep space, was a structure. It was massive. Bigger than any human station. Bigger than some moons. Its surface was dark metal, covered in patterns and symbols that hurt to look at too long. Strange geometry that didn't quite make sense. "Scan it," Tae-sung ordered. The sensors went to work. Data began flooding the screens. The structure was old, very old. Millions of years, perhaps. It was still active, though. Power readings showed energy moving through its systems. The warning signal was coming from thousands of transmission points across its surface. "I'm detecting automated defenses," Yun-seo reported. Her voice was tense. "Weapon systems. A lot of them. All pointed at us. Can they reach us at this distance?" Tae-sung asked. "Easily. The energy signatures suggest they could vaporize us from twice this far away." Everyone waited. The weapons could fire at any moment. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing happened. "Why aren't they shooting?" Hee-jin whispered. Jiwoo was staring at her scanner data. "Look at this. The defense systems activated when we arrived. I can see the power spike. But then, they just stopped. They're not targeting us. They're not doing anything. It's like they don't know what to do with us," Jae-won said. Tae-sung made a decision. "We're going closer. Slow approach. Keep all weapons cold. If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead already." The horizon's edge moved forward. Every meter felt like a kilometer. The crew watched the massive station grow larger in their viewport. The weapon systems tracked their movement but never fired. It was unsettling, like being watched by something that couldn't decide if you were food or friend. They came within 100 meters of the surface. Up close, they could see details. Docking ports, windows, corridors visible through transparent sections, and something else, writing, everywhere in languages that human eyes had never seen. Symbols and glyphs that made the translation software crash every time it tried to analyze them. "There," Sung-ho pointed. "That looks like a main entrance. And it's open. The docking port was indeed open. Inside they could see lights. Dim but present. Something was still functioning inside this ancient place. "We need to go in there," Jiwoo said. "We need to know what this is." Tae-sung knew she was right. They had come too far to stop now. "Yunseo, prepare a boarding team. Full gear, assume hostile environment. Jaewon, you're with them. We need someone who can interface with whatever technology is in there." "I'm going too," Jiwoo said. It wasn't a request. Tae-sung nodded. "Fine, but Yunseo is in command of the team. You follow her orders. Understood?" The boarding party assembled in the airlock 30 minutes later. 8 people total. They wore full environmental suits and carried weapons that probably wouldn't help if something in there decided to kill them, but humans carried weapons anyway. It made them feel better. The small shuttle detached from the horizon's edge and flew across the short distance to the station. As it entered the docking port, the lights inside grew brighter. The station was welcoming them, or preparing them for something. The shuttle landed on a platform that looked like it had been waiting for millions of years. The boarding team stepped out onto the surface of an alien structure that should not exist. Their helmet lights cut through the dimness. The corridor ahead stretched into darkness. "Stay together," Yunseo ordered. "Watch your corners. Jaewon, see if you can find an interface, something we can talk to." They moved forward into the unknown. Behind them, the docking port sealed shut with a sound like thunder. The team spun around, weapons raised. But there was no threat. Only darkness and the sound of ancient systems coming to life. Deep in the station, something woke up. Something that had been waiting. And it began to show them the truth. The corridors inside the station were vast. The ceiling stretched up so high that the team's lights couldn't reach it. The walls were covered in those same strange symbols, glowing faintly with their own light. Each step the team took echoed in the emptiness. "This place is huge," one of Yunseo's security officers whispered. "A whole city could fit in here." "More than one city," Jaewon said, studying his scanner. "The structure extends for kilometers in every direction. Multiple levels. Hundreds of sections. Maybe thousands." Jiwoo ran her hand along the wall. The material was cold but not quite metal. Not quite stone either. Something else. Something humans had never seen before. "This was built by people who understood things we don't," she said quietly. They reached a large chamber. The moment they entered, lights blazed to life. The team flinched, raising their weapons. But there was no attack. Only light revealing what had been hidden. The chamber was a perfect circle, maybe 200 meters across. In the center stood a platform. On the walls all around them were displays. Hundreds of them. And they were activating one by one, showing images, pictures, data, information. "What is this place?" Yunseo asked. Jaewon walked to the nearest display. His eyes went wide. "I think it's a museum. Or a library. Or both." He touched the screen and it responded to him, cycling through images. "Look at this. These are star maps, species classifications, historical records." Jiwoo moved to another display. Her breath caught in her throat. "These are civilizations. Alien civilizations. Different species. Different worlds." She scrolled through the images. Beings with 4 arms. Beings made of something like crystal. Beings that looked almost human but not quite. So many of them. How many? Tae-sung's voice came through their communication link from the ship. Jiwoo kept counting as she moved from display to display. Each one showed a different species. Different cultures. Different technologies. All documented in careful detail. 37, she finally said. 37 different intelligent species. "Where are they now?" Tae-sung asked. That was the question, wasn't it? Jiwoo studied the displays more carefully. Each one had dates, timelines, the beginning of each civilization, and the end. Every single one had an end date. "They're all dead," she whispered. "Every single one of them is extinct." The team gathered in the center of the chamber, looking at the walls around them. 37 civilizations, 37 dead races. This wasn't a museum. It was a graveyard. "What killed them?" Yunseo asked. As if answering her question, the central platform activated. A hologram appeared above it. Not an image this time. Something else. It moved, it shifted, it spoke. Not in words at first, but in pure data. Streams of information that J1's equipment, translated into language they could understand. The voice that emerged was old, tired, sad beyond measure. "You should not be here," it said. "Your kind should not exist anymore." "What are you?" Jiwoo asked. "I am the Keeper, the last witness. I was created by the Alliance, the final alliance of organic life. We built this station to warn others, to tell them what comes, to tell them to hide." "Warn us about what?" Yunseo demanded. The hologram shifted. New images appeared, ships, massive ships, not built for exploration or trade, built for only one purpose: destruction. "The Harvesters," the Keeper said. "That is what we called them. They are machines, ancient machines. They were created long ago by a species that no longer exists. Their purpose is simple: find intelligent life, study it, and when it reaches a certain level of technology, destroy it." Jiwoo felt cold. "Why? Optimization." The species that created them believed the universe needed order, efficiency. They built the Harvesters to eliminate what they called inefficient forms of life, species that would not develop along optimal paths. The Harvesters learned, they adapted, they became perfect at their task. "These 37 civilizations," Taesung said through the link. "The Harvesters killed them all?" "Yes, each one reached the threshold, the level of technology that marked them for harvesting. The machines came. They studied each species, learned their strengths, their weaknesses, their technology, their tactics, and then they eliminated them, completely. Not one survivor from any of the 37 races." Jaewon was shaking. "How long ago was the last one?" 217 of your years ago. The Kaleshi. They were warriors, strong, brave. They lasted 3 years against the Harvesters. Then they were gone. After them, the Harvesters moved on. The alliance that built me was already dead by then. I remained here alone, transmitting the warning, hoping no one would come, hoping no other species would rise to the threshold. "But we did," Jiwoo said. "Humanity reached the threshold." "Yes." The Keeper's voice carried something like surprise. "You did? You were marked. The Harvesters detected you 200 years ago. A scout ship was sent to your solar system. It was meant to study you, to learn everything about humanity, to prepare for the harvest." Everyone in the chamber went very still, but the harvest never came. The Keeper continued. "That scout ship never reported back. It never completed its mission. This should be impossible. Nothing stops a Harvester scout. Nothing prevents them from gathering their data. Yet somehow your species did. You are an anomaly, an impossible anomaly." Yunseo stepped forward. "What do you mean we stopped it? We never even saw it. There's no record of any alien contact in 2647. I do not know how you did it. The data I have is incomplete. The scout ship entered your system. It began its observations. And then, nothing. Silence. It never returned to the Harvester fleet. It never transmitted its findings. By all Harvester protocols, this cannot happen." Jiwoo's mind was racing. A Harvester scout ship had come to Earth 200 years ago. It had been there watching, studying, and somehow it had failed. But how? Humanity hadn't even known it was there. They had no defense against something they didn't know existed. "Show us everything you have on that scout ship," she demanded. "Every piece of data. Every record." The Keeper complied. New displays activated, showing the Harvester Scout's approach to Earth's solar system. The team watched it arrive. Watched it begin scanning Earth. Watched it deploy sensor probes. Everything was proceeding normally for a Harvester operation. And then the data became strange. The scout ship's reports showed confusion, uncertainty. It couldn't complete its analysis of humanity. Every simulation it ran produced different results. Every prediction about human behavior contradicted the last one. The scout ship kept requesting more time, more data. It needed to understand humans completely before it could report back. But the more it studied, the less it understood. The last transmission from the scout ship was bizarre. A single statement. Pattern recognition failure. Species classification impossible. Awaiting new parameters, then nothing. The ship had vanished. Simply disappeared from all Harvester networks. "It couldn't figure us out," Jaewon said slowly. "It was programmed to learn everything about a species, but it couldn't learn everything about us." "Why not?" Yunseo asked. Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring. The Keeper's voice rose in urgency. "They have found you. The harvesters. They detected your ship's arrival. They are coming. You have awoken them from their search pattern. They are coming here now. On the horizon's edge, Taesung watched his sensors light up with new contacts, ships dropping out of fold space. 5 of them, each one massive. Each one moving toward the station with terrible purpose. Get back to the ship, he ordered the boarding team. Now, we need to leave now. But Jiwoo was still staring at the data. At the failed scout ship, at the truth buried in these ancient records. We can't run, she said. We need to understand why we survived. It's the only chance we have. The boarding team ran back to their shuttle. Behind them, the ancient station's lights flickered as the keeper worked to help them escape. Doors opened automatically. Corridors illuminated their path. The station itself was trying to save them. 2 minutes to contact, Hyejin reported from the horizon's edge. Her voice was tight with fear. Those ships are fast. Really fast. Taesung opened a quantum communication link to Earth. He needed to report this, needed to warn humanity. Admiral Bora appeared on his screen. She was the fleet commander, responsible for all of Earth's defense forces in this sector. Captain, we're reading multiple hostile contacts at your position. What's happening out there? Taesung gave her the short version. Ancient station. Dead civilizations. Machines that kill intelligent life. Machines that were coming for them right now. And machines that had already tried to kill humanity once before 200 years ago. I'm sending reinforcements, Bora said immediately. But it will take them 6 hours to reach you. We might not have 6 hours. Then stay alive until we get there. That's an order. Bora's image was replaced by another person, a woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Historian Daeon. She specialized in human development and technological evolution. Captain, I've been listening to your report. Send me everything that station has on the Harvester scout ship. Every piece of data. We're kind of busy trying not to die, Taesung said. And I'm trying to figure out how to keep you alive. Send me the data. Now. The shuttle carrying the boarding team docked with the horizon's edge. Everyone scrambled onto the ship. Jaewon immediately started transferring all the information they had gathered from the station to Earth. Terabytes of data. Ancient records. The history of 37 dead civilizations. And most importantly, the confused reports of a harvester scout that couldn't understand humanity. Contact in 30 seconds, Hyejin announced. The harvester ships emerged from behind the station. They were like nothing humans had ever seen. Black, smooth, perfect. No visible weapons. No visible engines. Just 5 massive objects that moved with impossible precision. They arranged themselves in a formation around the horizon's edge and the ancient station. They're scanning us, Sung-ho said. Every system we have. They're taking it all in, learning us. Return to Earth, the lead harvester ship transmitted. The voice was not threatening. It was calm. Clinical. The voice of something that did not hate. It simply performed a function. You will return to your homeworld. You will be processed in the proper sequence. Resistance is inefficient, Taesung looked at his crew, at the people who had served with him for years, at Jiwoo who had spent her whole life searching for aliens. She had found them, just not the kind anyone wanted to find. Charge weapons, Taesung ordered. Prepare for fold jump. They'll shoot us down before we can jump, Sung-ho warned. I know, but we're not going quietly. On Earth, Da-un was tearing through the data at superhuman speed. She had 3 other historians helping her. They were looking at the Harvester Scouts reports from 200 years ago, looking at what had confused it, looking at what made humanity different from all the other species the Harvesters had destroyed. Here, one of her assistants said, look at this comparison. The Harvesters studied 37 species before us. Each one followed a predictable pattern of development. Dayun examined the timeline. Every species had developed in similar ways. They discovered fire, then tools, then agriculture, then cities, then industry, then space travel. Each step followed logically from the last. Each civilization specialized. Some became warriors, some became scientists, some became traders, but each one chose a path and followed it. But humans didn't do that, Dayun whispered. We did everything, all at once, in no particular order. She pulled up human history. Humans had developed writing before they developed the wheel in some places. In other places, the opposite was true. Humans had built space stations while still using stone tools in some parts of the world. Humans had split the atom while still fighting with swords in some wars. There was no pattern, no logical progression. Humanity was chaos. The other species unified before they went to space, another assistant said. One government, one culture, one purpose. Humans didn't, Dayun said. We went to space while still divided. Multiple governments, multiple cultures, multiple purposes. We competed, we fought, we disagreed about everything. She contacted Tae-sung. Captain, I think I know why the scout ship failed. Every other species the Harvesters studied was predictable. They followed optimal development paths. They made logical decisions. But humans don't. We make emotional decisions, illogical decisions. We do things that don't make sense. And we do them all the time. How does that help us? Tae-sung asked. The Harvester ships were getting closer. His weapons were charged, but he knew they were useless. These machines had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than humanity. The Harvesters learn by observing. They watch a species. They understand how that species thinks. Then they predict what that species will do. They create a perfect model, and they use that model to destroy the species. But they couldn't create a model of humanity. We don't follow models. We break them. Jiwoo was listening to this conversation. Her scientific mind was racing. So their advantage is that they can predict their enemies. But they can't predict us. Exactly, Dawn said. The scout ship kept trying to understand humans. It ran thousands of simulations. Every single one produced a different result. It couldn't complete its mission because we're impossible to model. So we fight them by being unpredictable, Tae-sung said slowly. You fight them by being human. Taeun corrected. The Harvester ships opened fire, not to destroy, to disable. Precision beams lanced out, targeting the Horizon's Edge's engines. But Sung-ho had already anticipated this. He had already shut down the main engines and rerouted power to the backups. The Harvester beams hit nothing but empty space where the engines should have been active. That doesn't make sense, Heejin said. Why would we shut down our engines when we need to run? Exactly, Sung-ho grinned. It doesn't make sense. So they won't expect it. Tae-sung understood. Everyone start doing things that don't make sense. Every system, every weapon, every action. Don't follow protocols. Don't follow training. Do the opposite. Do the wrong thing. The crew looked at him like he was crazy. Then they started to understand. Yoon Seo fired missiles backward away from the Harvester ships. The Harvesters paused, trying to calculate why a ship would fire its weapons away from an enemy. While they were processing this illogical action, Tae-sung turned the ship directly toward the largest Harvester vessel and accelerated. Not trying to escape, heading right at them, the Harvesters scattered. Their programming didn't account for prey that charged predators. Jaewon started venting atmosphere from random sections of the ship, not because they needed to, just because it made no sense. The Harvesters tried to determine if this was some kind of new weapon or a sign of damage. They couldn't decide. It's working, Jiwoo breathed. They're confused. We're confusing them. Admiral Bora was watching all of this from Earth. She saw what Tae-sung was doing. She understood. And she smiled. All ships, new orders. Engage the enemy with unpredictable tactics. Don't follow any standard combat protocols. Be creative, be random, be human. Across human space, ships began receiving her orders. At first, the captains thought she had lost her mind. Then they understood, and they prepared to fight the strangest battle humanity had ever fought. A battle where the goal wasn't to be the strongest. It was to be the most confusing. The first human reinforcements arrived 3 hours later. 20 ships. Not much against 5 Harvester vessels that had destroyed entire civilizations. But these 20 ships were led by Captain Minji of the experimental warship Defiant. And Minji had been listening to everything that happened. All ships, this is Minji. Forget everything you learned in the academy. Forget every battle simulation. Today we fight like humans. Chaotic, messy, beautiful. The human fleet dropped out of fold space in a scattered formation. Not the tight military formation they had been taught. Each ship came in from a different angle, at different speeds, with weapons pointed in random directions. The Harvesters tried to analyze the formation. Their computers searched for the pattern. There was none. The Defiant came in spinning, actually spinning, end over end like a piece of debris. No warship had ever entered combat spinning. It made no tactical sense. It made targeting difficult for your own weapons. It made your crew sick, but it confused the Harvesters completely. Minji fired her main cannon while upside down and spinning. The shot went wide, missed completely. The harvesters calculated that this was incompetence. They dismissed the Defiant as a threat. That was a mistake. The second shot hit perfectly, right in the seam between two armor sections on a harvester ship. Minji had meant to miss the first shot, had made the harvesters think she was a bad shot. Then she had shown them the truth. Humans lied. Humans deceived. Humans didn't fight fair. Break formation, Minji ordered. Every ship on their own. Don't coordinate. Don't communicate. Just fight. The human fleet scattered. Each captain made their own decisions. Some ran, some attacked. Some did both at the same time. Some fired all their weapons at once. Some didn't fire at all. The harvesters tried to predict what the fleet would do next. But there was no fleet. There were 20 individual ships with 20 individual captains making 20 different choices every second. Back on the horizon's edge, Sung-ho was working with Kyung-soo, a scientist who had been studying quantum fold technology. Together, they were trying to do something impossible. The math says this will tear the ship apart, Kyung-soo said. Does the math account for desperation? Sung-ho asked. No. Then let's try it anyway. They were going to fold space inside a gravity well. Every simulation said this was impossible. The gravity would distort the fold. The ship would be torn into pieces. It was basic physics. You couldn't fold space near a massive object. But humans had never let physics stop them from trying stupid things. Sung-ho activated the fold drive. The horizon's edge began to shimmer. Space around it bent in ways that made looking at it painful. The harvester ships immediately focused on this. Their sensors detected massive energy buildup. They calculated that the human ship was attempting an impossible maneuver. They predicted failure. The horizon's edge folded space. For just a second, just a tiny jump. But it folded space right next to the ancient station, where gravity was strongest. The ship should have exploded. Instead, it appeared behind the harvester fleet. How did you do that? Hyojin asked. She had been sure they were about to die. I have no idea, Sung-ho admitted. But it worked. Because it shouldn't have worked, Ji-woo said. She was starting to understand. The harvesters predicted failure because all their models said it would fail. But humans don't follow models. Admiral Bora was coordinating the battle from Earth. She had brought in Fleet Marshal Hyun-woo, the leader of all Earth's defense forces. Together they watched the chaos unfold. The harvesters were powerful. But they were losing. Not because humans were stronger, but because humans were impossible to fight. They're adapting, Hyun-woo warned. Look at their tactics. They're learning to account for unpredictability. He was right. The harvesters were adjusting. They stopped trying to predict what humans would do. Instead, they started covering all possibilities. If a human ship could move in any direction, they would fire in all directions. If humans could attack or retreat, they would prepare for both. They're learning, Bora said, just like they learned with the other 37 species. Then we need to teach them something new, Hyun-woo replied. He opened a channel to all human ships. New tactic. Everyone shut down your weapons. There was silence on the channel. Then every captain started asking if he was insane. Trust me, Hyun-woo said. Shut down weapons. Right now. One by one, the human ships powered down their weapons. The harvesters detected this immediately. Their computers analyzed the situation. The prey had surrendered. This was logical. This was expected. This was the optimal choice when facing superior firepower. The harvester ships stopped firing. They began moving into position to capture the human vessels. This was standard procedure. Harvest the ships. Study the technology. Process the crew. Now, Hyun-woo ordered. Hit them with everything. The human ships reactivated their weapons and fired at point-blank range. The harvesters hadn't expected this. Why would prey surrender and then attack? It made no sense. It was a waste of the surrender. It was inefficient. But humans didn't care about efficiency. Humans cared about winning. 3 harvester ships took heavy damage. One actually started to drift, its systems overwhelmed. But there were still 5 of them, and the humans were running out of tricks. Then one of the harvesters did something unexpected. It stopped moving. Its weapons powered down. Its systems began to shut down one by one. What's happening to it? Minji asked. J1 was scanning the disabled harvester. It's having some kind of logic failure. Look at its computer core. It's in a feedback loop. It's trying to model human behavior, trying to predict what we'll do next. But every simulation contradicts the last one. It can't resolve the paradox. It's stuck. It's confused itself to death, Tae-sung said with wonder. The other harvester ships detected their companion's failure. They performed immediate diagnostics. They found the problem. Human unpredictability was causing calculation errors. The solution was obvious. Stop trying to predict humans. Just destroy them with overwhelming force. The remaining 4 harvesters opened fire with everything they had. Not targeting engines or weapons. Targeting to destroy. The human fleet scattered. Ships took hits. Some went dark. Some exploded. Humans were dying. But humans were also fighting back. And every time the harvesters thought they understood the human tactics, the humans changed them. Every time the harvesters adapted, the humans did something new. Something weird. Something that made no sense. Minji rammed her ship into a harvester. Actually rammed it. Used the Defiant as a battering ram. No captain in history had ever deliberately rammed their own ship into an enemy. It was suicide. It was wasteful. It was stupid. It also tore a massive hole in the harvester's hull. The Defiant survived. Barely. But it survived because Minji had reinforced the forward sections and weakened the rear. She had designed her ship to be rammed into things. Who does that? Humans do that? The battle continued for 7 hours. The longest 7 hours of everyone's lives. Ships were destroyed on both sides. People died. But slowly, impossibly, the humans were winning. Not because they were better fighters, but because they were better at being unpredictable. Finally, the harvester ships began to retreat, not because they were defeated, but because they couldn't process the combat data. Their computers were overloading. Their systems were caught in logic loops. They needed time to analyze what had happened. Needed time to develop new models, new predictions. They folded away into deep space, leaving behind one disabled harvester ship. The human fleet was battered, exhausted, but alive. Tae-sung opened a channel to all ships. We just fought the things that destroyed 37 civilizations. And we survived. Remember this day. Remember that humanity doesn't win by being the strongest. We win by being ourselves. On the disabled harvester ship, Jae-won was examining its computer core. What he found made his blood run cold. "Captain, you need to see this." The harvester sent a message before it shut down. A message to the main fleet. It told them everything that happened here. "So they know about us now," Jiwoo said. "More than that. They're coming. All of them. Every harvester in the galaxy. They're coming to Earth." Earth had 3 months. That was how long it would take for the main harvester fleet to arrive. 3 months to prepare for an enemy that had wiped out 37 civilizations. 3 months to get ready for the end of humanity, or the beginning of something new. Council leader Soon-hee called an emergency meeting of Earth's government. Every nation sent representatives. Every colony in human space joined the discussion. For the first time in decades, humanity spoke with one voice. Because they had no choice, we can hide, one counselor suggested. Spread out across the galaxy. Make ourselves hard to find. They'll hunt us down, Admiral Bora said. One colony at a time. That's what they did to the others. We can fight, another said. Build weapons. Fortify our worlds. We tried fighting, Fleet Marshal Hyunwoo replied. We won one battle. But the main fleet will be ready for us. They'll adapt. Soon-hee looked at the faces around the table. Fear, desperation, hopelessness. But also something else. Defiance. Humans didn't surrender, even when they should. Captain Tae-sung and Dr. Jiwoo are returning to Earth, Soon-hee said. They have a proposal. Let's hear it before we decide our future. The Horizon's Edge arrived at Earth 3 days later. Tae-sung and Jiwoo went directly to the council. They looked tired. They had been working non-stop on their idea. An idea that was either brilliant or insane. Maybe both. The harvesters are coming for us, Tae-sung began, and we can't beat them in a straight fight. They're too powerful, too advanced. But we learned something important. We learned that they can't predict us. Our unpredictability is our weapon. We already know this, a counselor said impatiently. How does it help against a whole fleet? Jiwoo stepped forward. Because we're not just going to fight them. We're going to confuse them, break them, drive them crazy with paradoxes they can't solve. She activated a display. It showed the ancient station. the place where 37 civilizations were documented. That station has been transmitting a warning for millions of years. Stay away, don't come here. But what if we change the message? To what? Soon he asked. To an invitation, Jiwoo said. We turn Earth into a beacon. Not a warning, an invitation to any species that's hiding, any survivors, any civilization that escaped the harvesters. We tell them about humanity, about how we survived, about unpredictability as a weapon, and we invite them to join us. The room erupted in argument. Half the council thought it was suicide, drawing more attention to Earth, making themselves a bigger target. The other half saw the possibility. Allies, others who could fight alongside humanity. There's more, Taesung said loudly, silencing the room. We studied the captured harvester ship. Jaewon and Kyungsoo have been taking it apart, learning how it works, and they found something interesting. Kyungsoo appeared on screen from his laboratory. Behind him was the harvester ship, opened up like a machine being dissected. The harvesters were created by an extinct species, he explained. They're millions of years old. Their programming is ancient, and it's based on one core principle: eliminate inefficiency, remove species that don't follow optimal development paths. So they're not evil, Jiwoo said. They're just following their programming. They think they're helping the universe by removing species that develop wrong. But we develop wrong on purpose, Sung-ho added. He had joined Kyungsoo in the lab. We're inefficient by design. We make emotional choices. We take risks. We do stupid things, and that's exactly what makes us strong. The harvesters can't understand this, Kyungsoo continued. Their creators never imagined a species like us, a species that thrives through chaos. So their programming has a flaw, a weakness. They can't process us, and if we can get enough unpredictable species together, we can overload their systems completely. Soon he saw where this was going. You want to weaponize diversity. Use the differences between species as a weapon. Exactly, Taesung said. The harvesters learned to fight each species individually. But they've never faced multiple unpredictable species working together, each one fighting differently, each one making different choices. It would be chaos. Beautiful, impossible chaos, the council voted. It was close. But humanity decided to gamble. They would send the beacon. They would invite others. They would make Earth the center of resistance against the harvesters. The beacon was built in orbit around Earth. It used technology from the ancient station, combined with human engineering. It broadcast on every frequency, in every language they could create. The message was simple. We are humanity. We survived the harvesters because we are unpredictable. We do not follow optimal paths. We make mistakes. We take risks. We choose emotion over logic. And it makes us strong. If you are hiding from the harvesters, stop hiding. Join us. Together we can be more than they can calculate. The message went out across the galaxy, and then they waited. For 2 months there was silence. No response. No indication that anyone heard. The council began to doubt. Maybe there were no survivors. Maybe humanity was alone after all. Then, one by one, responses began to arrive. A species of aquatic beings who had hidden in the deep oceans of their world. A race of crystalline entities who had fragmented themselves to avoid detection. Nomads who had been running for centuries. Refugees who had thought they were the last of their kind. They came to Earth. Not all of them. Not even most. But enough. 17 different species. 17 different ways of thinking. 17 different types of unpredictability. Young cadet Dong-hyun watched the ships arrive. He was only 19. Fresh from the academy, he had never expected his first assignment to be defending Earth from an enemy that had killed billions. But here he was, on the bridge of a destroyer. Waiting for the harvesters. They're here, Yijin announced. She was on the horizon's edge, coordinating communications for the Allied fleet. Multiple contacts. Harvester fleet emerging from fold space. The harvester armada was massive. Hundreds of ships. Maybe thousands. It was hard to count. They filled the space around Earth like a swarm, the lead harvester ship transmitted. Humanity, you have attracted other inefficient species. This changes nothing. You will all be processed. Resistance remains inefficient, Taesung responded. He was commanding the defense of Earth personally. We don't care about efficiency. We care about living, and we're going to keep living, no matter what you do. The battle began, but it wasn't like the first battle. This time, humans weren't fighting alone. The aquatic species used liquid-based weapons that the harvesters had never encountered. The crystalline beings could refract energy in ways that bent the laws of physics. The nomads knew tricks for survival that no one had ever documented. And humans? Humans did what humans do best. They improvised. They took chances. They made decisions that made no sense, and they taught the others to do the same. Dong Hyun fired his weapons at a harvester ship. Then he shut down his engines and drifted. Then he fired again. Then he accelerated toward a different target. Then he stopped and did nothing for 30 seconds. He was making it up as he went along, and it was working. All across the battle space, the same thing was happening. Hundreds of ships from 17 species all fighting in completely different ways. There was no coordination, no battle plan, no strategy, just chaos. The harvesters tried to adapt, but every time they created a model for one species, another species did something different. Every time they predicted one tactic, 10 other tactics appeared. Their computers were overloading. Their systems were failing. They had never faced anything like this. One by one, harvester ships began shutting down. Logic failures, system overloads, caught in endless loops trying to model the impossible. Some retreated. Some just stopped moving. Some exploded from the internal stress of trying to calculate chaos. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the harvester armada was gone. Some ships had been destroyed. Most had just left, retreated into deep space, trying to process what had happened, trying to understand how they had lost. Earth was damaged but standing. The Allied fleet had suffered losses. Good people had died, but they had won. Soon he stood on the surface of Earth looking up at the stars. Tae-sung stood beside her. They watched the alien ships in orbit, species that had been strangers 3 months ago. Now they were allies, friends, partners in survival. What happens now? Soon he asked. Now we keep broadcasting, Tae-sung said. We keep inviting others. We keep being unpredictable. We show the galaxy that there's another way to live. Years later, Dong Hyun would become a captain. He would tell the story of the Battle of Earth to his crew, about the day humanity stopped being alone, about the day unpredictability became a weapon, about the day chaos defeated order, and he would end the story the same way Tae-sung ended it. We're not humanity the conquerors. We're not humanity the destroyers. We're humanity the unpredictable, and that makes us hope. The beacon of Earth continued to transmit, out into the galaxy, into the darkness, an invitation, a promise, a declaration that life didn't need to be perfect to be strong, that mistakes could be weapons, that chaos could be beautiful. The harvesters still existed. They were still out there, still following their programming, still hunting inefficient species. But now they knew to fear one thing. They knew to fear the species that didn't make sense, the species that broke all the rules.